Let me ask you something. Have you ever held on so tightly to someone that you started losing yourself? You kept pouring into them, but every time you looked in the mirror, you couldn't even recognize the person staring back. That's what happens when you attach yourself too much. But the moment you start detaching, that's when your life changes. When you've been attached to someone for too long, you start to lose your reflection. You stop hearing your own voice, and all you hear is theirs. Their opinions, their judgments, their approval or disapproval, it all becomes louder than your intuition. You wake up in the morning, and before you even ask yourself what you want, you ask, what will they think if I do this? Will they be happy? Will they leave? And slowly, piece by piece, you hand over the keys to your identity. That's what attachment can do. It strips away your essence. But the moment you begin to detach, the moment you pull back, you start to see yourself again. You look in the mirror, and for the first time in a long time, you whisper, wait a minute. I remember that person. That's me. Rediscovering who you are is not some cliché self-love slogan. It is survival. Because here's the truth. When you are attached too tightly to someone else, you live in their story, not yours. You start walking their path, chasing their approval, and carrying their burdens. But detachment flips the script. It forces you to pause, to breathe, to ask, who am I without them? Who was I before I gave so much away? And when you start answering that question, you step into a level of self-awareness you might have forgotten existed. That is the beginning of transformation, not adding something new to your life, but recovering what you thought you lost. Think back to when you were younger, before the relationship, before the dependency, before the attachment. Remember your passions, your laugh, your goals, your fire. Where did that go? It got buried under compromise, under trying to please, under constant sacrifice for someone who never gave the same in return. But when you detach, you start digging again. You uncover those old dreams, those forgotten talents, those wild ambitions. They were never gone. They were just waiting for you to stop pouring all your energy into someone else and start pouring it back into yourself. And once you find them, you begin to rebuild your life, not around another person's expectations, but around your truth. Now, rediscovery doesn't always feel comfortable. At first, it feels lonely. At first, it feels like loss. Because when you step away from someone you were attached to, there's a void. You ask yourself, who am I now that they're not here? And the silence can be terrifying, but here's the secret. That silence is sacred. That silence is space for you to hear your own thoughts, your own heart, your own desires. Most people run back to attachment because they can't handle that silence. They'd rather live in the noise of someone else's world than face the quiet of their own. But if you're brave enough to stay in it, to sit with it, you'll discover something powerful. You'll realize you don't need their voice to guide you anymore. You have your own. Rediscovery also means relearning your worth. Because attachment often makes you shrink yourself just to be accepted. You compromise too much. You accept less than you deserve. You play small so someone else can feel big. But detachment brings you back to your natural size. You stand taller. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop begging for validation. You remember that you are worthy, not because of what you give to someone else, but because of who you already are. And when that truth sinks in, everything shifts. The conversations you tolerate, the environments you allow, the people you entertain, all of it changes. Because once you rediscover yourself, you stop settling for anyone or anything that tries to make you forget again. Finally, rediscovering who you are is freedom. It is the liberation of your soul from chains you didn't even realize. eyes were there. You no longer wake up wondering how to keep someone else happy. You wake up asking, what can I create today? What can I build? How can I grow? You begin to chase your own destiny again. And here's the beauty of it. Once you find yourself, once you remember who you really are, you will never lose that person again. Because now you know the difference between attachment and authenticity. Now you know the taste of freedom, and once you've tasted that, you'll never starve for someone else's approval again. When you are deeply attached to someone, chaos becomes normal. You don't even realize it at first, but your nervous system stays on edge. One text message, one unanswered call, one change in their mood, and suddenly your whole world feels unstable. You're walking on eggshells, trying not to upset them, trying not to lose them. That constant tension, that constant overthinking, that's not love, that's chaos. But the moment you detach, the moment you release the grip you have on them, you start to feel something unfamiliar. Silence, stillness, peace. And that peace is not just relief, it is healing. Peace is the proof that you were never meant to live in constant drama. Think about it. Love isn't supposed to feel like a battlefield every single day. You shouldn't be exhausted just from trying to keep someone in your life. Detachment teaches you this lesson quickly, because once you take a step back, you notice how much energy you were wasting. You realize how much of your mind was being drained by arguments, assumptions, and anxieties. And then, in the absence of all that noise, you find yourself breathing deeper, smiling without reason, sleeping better at night. It's not that life suddenly becomes perfect, it's that your soul finally gets a chance to rest. Chaos is addictive. Let's be honest about that. When you've lived in turbulence long enough, peace can feel strange, almost uncomfortable. You might even crave the drama because drama feels familiar. But detachment forces you to break that cycle. It teaches you that peace isn't boring, it's necessary, that quiet moments are not empty, they are full of strength, that boundaries are not walls to keep love out, they are doors that keep chaos from creeping back in. Detachment turns down the volume of your life so you can finally hear yourself think again. That's when peace becomes your new standard and chaos starts to feel unacceptable. But here's the truth. Peace doesn't show up overnight. The first stage of detachment often feels like withdrawal. You're restless. You're tempted to go back. You feel the urge to check up on them, to keep the cycle alive. That's because chaos leaves scars on your nervous system. It conditions you to live in fight-or-flight mode. But the longer you stay detached, the more you rewire yourself. Day by day, your body remembers what it feels like not to be in survival mode. Your heart stops racing, your mind stops spinning, and slowly, that deep calm begins to replace the storm you thought you couldn't live without. Peace also changes the way you make decisions. When you're attached, you make choices out of fear. Fear of losing them, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. But when you detach, you start making choices out of clarity. You stop asking, what if they leave me? And start asking, what if I leave behind everything that no longer serves me? That's when your path becomes straighter, your vision sharper, your steps more confident. Chaos had you reacting to life. Peace allows you to respond to life. And there's a big difference between reacting out of fear and responding out of wisdom. Most importantly, peace restores your dignity. Because chaos makes you forget how valuable you are. It makes you beg, chase, argue, and fight for scraps of attention. It keeps you locked in emotional battles that only drain you further. But detachment pulls you out of that war. It hands you back your self-respect. You stop chasing after storms and you start walking toward the sunlight. You stop giving your energy to drama and you start protecting it like it's sacred. And the truth is, it is sacred. Your peace is priceless. Once you taste it, you'll wonder why you ever traded it for chaos in the first place. Attachment has a way of making you forget your strength. When you're tied to someone too tightly, you hand over your power without even realizing it. You give them control over your emotions, your choices, your joy. One word from them can lift you up, and one silence from them can break you down. You start living like a puppet, strings pulled by their approval or disapproval. That's not love, that's surrender. But the moment you detach, the moment you cut those invisible strings, something incredible happens. You take your power back. You stop being a passenger in your own life, and you start driving again. Power is not about dominating someone else. It's about no longer allowing anyone to dominate you. When you're attached, you say yes when you mean no. You compromise too much. You bite your tongue. You shrink yourself. You accept less than you deserve. Why? Because you're afraid of losing them. But detachment kills that fear. It teaches you that losing someone is not the end of your life. It's often the beginning of it. And once you embrace that truth, you start to speak with authority. You start to set boundaries that can't be crossed. You start to walk into rooms with your head higher because you finally remember who you are. The beauty of regaining your power is this: you stop negotiating your worth. See, when you're attached, you're always bargaining. If I do this for them, maybe they'll stay. If I let that slide, maybe they'll love me more. You trade pieces of yourself just to keep them around. But once you detach, those deals are over. No more discounts on your dignity. No more sales on your soul. You walk at full price because you know you're worth it. And anybody who wants to be in your life has to meet you at that level, or not at all. That's real power. Taking your power back also means controlling your emotions again. When you're attached, your mood swings with theirs. If they're cold, you're broken. If they're warm, you're whole. That's not stability, that's dependency. But when you detach, you become steady. Their storms don't shake you. Their silence doesn't scare you. Their attention doesn't define you. You learn to generate your own joy, your own confidence, your own peace. And once you can do that, nobody can take it away from you again. That's why detachment is so free. It shifts the source of your strength from them back to you. Now, let's be honest, regaining your power doesn't happen without resistance. The moment you start pulling back, the person you were attached to might push harder. They might test your boundaries, question your choices, try to reel you back in. That's because they got comfortable with you being powerless. They got used to you giving everything while asking for little. But the difference now is this: you no longer move out of fear. You no longer bend just to be accepted. You stand firm. And when you do, you'll notice something powerful. You don't just gain respect from others, you gain respect from yourself. And here's the greatest truth of all. Once you reclaim your power, you see life differently. You realize you were never weak. You were just distracted. You realize that your value was never gone. It was just buried under attachment. You realize that the real power was never in them. It was always in you. Detachment doesn't give you something new. It simply returns to you what you gave away. And when that happens, you stop begging for love and you start attracting it. You stop chasing after validation and you start walking in confidence. You stop living small and you finally step into the power that was always yours to begin with. When you're attached to someone, clarity is the first thing you lose. You can't see straight. You can't think straight. Every decision is clouded by the same questions. What will they think? Will this make them upset? Will this push them away? Instead of living with direction, you live with hesitation. Instead of moving with purpose, you move with fear. And in that fog, you forget what you really want. That's the cost of attachment. It blurs your vision, but the moment you detach, it's like the fog lifts. Suddenly, life stops looking so complicated. The path that felt hidden begins to open, and you start walking with confidence again. That's the gift of detachment, clarity. Clarity is power. Without it, you're always second, guessing yourself. You say yes when you mean no. You stay silent when you should speak. You hold on when you should let go. But when clarity shows up, you see things for what they are, not for what you wish they could be. You stop romanticizing someone who's been draining you. You stop justifying behavior you should have walked away from long ago. You start calling things by their real names. And the moment you do that, your decisions become sharper. You stop wasting energy on confusion, and you start channeling it into action. Detachment creates clarity because it removes the noise. When you step back, you create space between you and the situation. That space gives you perspective. Think about it. Have you ever been too close to a painting to see the picture? All you see are the brushstrokes, the mess, the colors bleeding into each other. But the moment you step back, you see the masterpiece for what it really is. That's what detachment does. It allows you to zoom out and say, wait a minute. This isn't love, this is control. Or, this isn't support, this is manipulation. Or even, this isn't me living, this is me settling. That's clarity, and it only comes when you stop standing so close to the chaos. Clarity also shifts your focus from them back to you. Because let's be real, when you're attached, your whole world revolves around someone else. You're tracking their moods, their choices, their happiness. And in the process, you lose track of your own. Detachment flips the lens. Instead of asking, what do they need from me? You start asking, what do I need for me? That's when your life starts to take shape again. That's when you rediscover your goals, your passions, your vision. You stop wandering in someone else's shadow and begin to walk in your own light. The truth is, clarity doesn't always tell you what you want to hear. Sometimes it breaks your heart, because it shows you that the person you were holding on to is not the person you need. It shows you that the chapter you've been rewriting over and over is already finished. But clarity, no matter how painful, is always a gift, because pain tells the truth. Pain shows you what's real, and once you accept it, once you stop running from it, you gain something far greater than comfort. You gain direction. You know where you stand, and you know where you need to go next. And once clarity becomes your guide, you stop stumbling in the dark. You stop wasting years on dead ends. You stop letting other people's emotions dictate your future. You start walking with focus, with purpose, with vision. Detachment clears the noise so you can finally hear the voice inside you that says, this is who I am, this is what I deserve, this is where I'm going. And once you start listening to that voice, you'll never let attachment blind you again. Because the truth is, life is too short to live confused. Life is too precious to live lost. And the moment you detach, clarity doesn't just guide you, it transforms you. Attachment doesn't just drain your energy, it blocks your vision. When you're tied too tightly to someone, you stop noticing the doors life is trying to open for you. You're so busy clinging to what you know, to who you know, that you miss the blessings passing right by you. How many opportunities have slipped through your fingers because you were too focused on them? How many chances for growth, for happiness, for success did you ignore because you thought you couldn't live without that person? That's what attachment does. it blinds you to what's possible, but the moment you detach, your perspective shifts. Suddenly, new doors start appearing everywhere. Possibilities you never even considered begin to show themselves. Detachment doesn't just free you from someone, it frees you for something. See, life has a funny way of rewarding the brave. The moment you let go of what's weighing you down, it makes room for what's meant to lift you up. That job you thought you weren't qualified for, suddenly the opportunity comes knocking. That friendship that felt out of reach, suddenly the connection is made. That idea you kept putting on the shelf, suddenly you have the energy and courage to bring it to life. But none of that happens when you're stuck holding onto a person who doesn't even see your worth. Detachment creates space, and in that space, blessings find room to land. Opportunities aren't just external, they're internal too. When you're attached, you lose the chance to grow because you're too busy trying to fix, chase, or please someone else. But when you detach, you invest that energy back into yourself. You start reading more, learning more, developing skills you never thought you had. You discover passions that were buried under the weight of attachment. You give yourself permission to dream again, and those inner opportunities, the chance to evolve, to expand, to transform, those are the foundations of everything else. Because once you grow within, the world outside begins to reflect it. Now, here's the truth most people don't want to admit. Attachment often keeps you stuck in circles. Same arguments, same disappointments, same cycles of hope and hurt. And circles don't lead anywhere. They just keep you spinning in place. Detachment, on the other hand, moves you forward. It turns the circle into a line, a path, a journey. And along that journey, you find opportunities you never could have discovered standing still. Life was always trying to move you forward, but attachment had you chained to the same spot. The moment you break free, you realize the world is wider, bigger, richer than the bubble you were trapped in. Opportunities also come in the form of people. Let's be real. Sometimes the reason you can't meet the right people is because you're too attached to the wrong ones. As long as you're clinging to someone who's not for you, your hands are too full to receive someone who is. Detachment empties those hands. It clears the space so new connections, new relationships, new communities can find you. People who respect you, people who inspire you, people who push you higher instead of pulling you lower. But you'll never meet them if you're still holding on to someone who was never meant to walk your full journey with you. And once opportunities begin to open, you realize something powerful. You were never stuck. You were just attached. Life wasn't withholding blessings. It was waiting for you to make room for them. Detachment doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes your capacity. It gives you the strength, the focus, and the courage to step through doors you once thought were too big for you. And when you start walking through those doors, you begin to understand the truth. The world is not small, love is not scarce, and your future is not limited. You were never meant to live trapped in one relationship, one season, one struggle. You were meant for more, and detachment is the key that unlocks it. Attachment often disguises itself as love. You tell yourself, I can't live without them, so this must be love. You justify the pain, the confusion, the sleepless nights, because you've convinced yourself that real love is supposed to hurt. But let me tell you the truth. Love is not supposed to feel like bondage. Love is not supposed to strip you of your identity, your peace, or your joy. That's not love, that's attachment. And the moment you begin to detach, your heart starts to see the difference. You realize that what you thought was love was really fear. Fear of losing them, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. Detachment teaches your heart to unlearn that lie and prepare itself for the real thing. Real love doesn't suffocate, It breathes life into you. It doesn't chain you. It frees you. When you detach from toxic attachment, your heart begins to heal. The wounds that once bled from begging, chasing, and compromising start to close. And as they close, you discover something revolutionary. Love isn't supposed to drain you. It's supposed to fill you. Love isn't supposed to silence you. It's supposed to hear you. Love isn't supposed to weaken you. It's supposed to strengthen you. Detachment is the process of clearing away the counterfeit so your heart can recognize the authentic. Your heart also learns that love begins with you. See, when you're attached, you put yourself last. You think love means sacrifice, so you keep pouring into them until you're empty. But detachment shifts the order. It teaches you that self-love is not selfish, it's foundational. Because when you love yourself first, you set the standard for how others should love you. You stop tolerating disrespect. You stop excusing mistreatment. You stop begging for crumbs when you know you deserve the feast. Detachment is what makes room for that lesson to settle deep in your spirit. The way you treat yourself is the blueprint for the way others will treat you. And here's the beautiful part. Once your heart learns real love, you no longer chase it. You attract it. You attract friendships that feel safe. You attract partners that feel consistent. You attract environments that nurture instead of deplete. Why? Because your energy changes. The desperate, clinging energy of attachment disappears, and in its place rises confidence, patience, and peace. You're no longer trying to force someone to stay. You're trusting that the right ones will naturally align with you. And when they do, the love you experience will be steady, not shaky, mutual, not one-sided, liberating, not suffocating. But learning real love also means understanding that not everyone is capable of giving it. That's where discernment comes in. Detachment sharpens your instincts, so when someone comes into your life with empty promises, you recognize it faster. When someone tries to love you halfway, you see through it. You stop falling for potential and start paying attention to patterns. That's wisdom. And with that wisdom, your heart becomes guarded but not hardened. You remain open to love but no longer naive about it. You remain soft but not weak. You remain hopeful but not blind. That balance is what protects your heart while keeping it ready for the right love when it arrives. And once your heart learns real love, you finally understand. Love was never about losing yourself in someone else. It was about finding someone who helps you see yourself more clearly. Love was never about clinging. It was about standing strong, side by side. Love was never about fear. It was about freedom, and you can't learn that lesson if you stay tangled in attachment. You only learn it when you let go. Detachment is not the end of love. It's the doorway to the real thing. And once you walk through it, your heart will never confuse chains for love again. So when you finally detach, understand this. You are not losing. You are not breaking. You are not failing. You are choosing yourself, choosing your peace, choosing your power, choosing your clarity, choosing your future, and most of all, choosing a love that feels real, not a love that feels like chains, because life is too short to stay small. It's too sacred to waste in confusion, and it's too powerful to hand over to somebody who was never meant to carry it. The moment you detach is the moment you rise, and once you rise, there's no going back.